It is.
Liz, we have to be honest. We have to be honest. But borrowing your way out of inflation isn't a plan, it's a fairy tale.
We are not a poor country, yet millions face a winter of destitution after a decade of mishandling of the economy combined with a summer of complete inaction, followed by a big, fat millionaires trickle-down wank of a mini-budget.
As I record this video, the Bank of England has just made an emergency intervention into the bond market. I want to start out with this video by saying that I know that Kwasi Kwarteng is a very, very highly qualified, very well-educated, experienced PhD who's been to Cambridge and Harvard and you name it, right? He's a smart guy. I've spent 3 or 4 days now, 5 days, digesting the budget. And it's also important to acknowledge that there really weren't perhaps many other options to try and stimulate growth, but the one that he has come up with, in my view, cannot stimulate growth. So let's just have a quick look what happened. So he announced a budget that was basically swathing tax cuts.
We promised to prioritise growth, Mr. Speaker. We promised a new approach for a new era. We promised to release the enormous potential of this country. Our growth plan has delivered all those promises and more, Mr. Speaker, and I commend it to the House.
Well, here's my plain English, layman's terms reasoning for why that can't work in our current situation. Sometimes tax cuts do stimulate the economy, but this is why they can't in this situation. So in the 5 days since the mini budget was announced, these are the following things that have happened. First of all, the pound plummeted. In fact, the pound fell immediately before he'd even finished reading out his budget statement. And that is the international money market saying that they don't believe that what he's doing is going to work, right? And at the same time, that had the opposite effect of what we wanted, which is it increases inflationary pressures for us. And inflation is our biggest problem right now. Okay, so that was the first thing. The pound plummeted. Secondly, the bond market, which is where the government borrows money from, punished the budget as well. And suddenly the cost of borrowing from the government shot up. And that's the cost of borrowing to the taxpayer. And it comes out of their annual budget for public services. So that's a really bad thing too. Third of all, the Bank of England was expected to intervene, and it came along and made a statement saying, don't worry, we're not going to hold back from putting up interest rates as much as we need to. They hoped that would calm the markets, but it didn't, which is why today, Wednesday the 30th, I think, of September, they have actually made an announcement saying, we will go and buy as many bonds as we have to create calm. But the reaction to that is that sterling has already plunged further, which means that the international markets have seen it as a panic move, which it is. Last night, the International Monetary Fund, for the first time in its history, came out and directly criticised a G7 country's budget, saying that we should think about reversing the budget measures. Well, that is the biggest slap in the face possible. Whether you agree with them or not, the fact that they've even felt it necessary to do that publicly is horrendous for the UK government. And last but not least, I think it is currently leading to a massive Tory meltdown in the party as they realise that they have probably lost the next election already and are wondering what to do. So it's created political instability because it's going to create infighting in the Conservative Party, and that's only going to lead to the overall uncertainty that is leading to people running around like headless chickens, mortgage products being taken off the shelf 1,000 in the last 48 hours at the time of recording, meaning that first-time buyers can't. So the housing market is going to go into paralysis and price falls are going to go into free fall. We are at the point of a house price, a proper crash. I mean, this crash may make previous crashes look like a walk in the park. It's in full swing. And I think if collapse is a stronger word than crash, that's also, I think, happening. Perhaps it can be arrested. Perhaps they can find a way to bring about stability, confidence, and calm in the markets that will allow the mortgage companies to come back in with competitively priced products. But until there is calm and confidence, that can't happen. So I still just cannot get my head around how Kwasi Kwarteng thought that this could stimulate growth. And here's my reason why. The tax cuts he's put in place for the median UK earner, average or median, it puts around about 20 to 25 quid a month back in the pocket of employed people on median incomes. Well, I mean, 25 quid a month isn't enough for you to go out and start spending in a way that's going to stimulate the economy for you, is it? And even for people on 100 grand a year, it only puts about £1,000 a year back in their pocket. And again, that is not going to be enough to go and stimulate growth in an economy. So if you just do the maths, the logic is flawed. Tax cuts to stimulate a growing economy. Now, if the investment zones somehow manage to attract massive investment, which will have to come from outside the country probably, into those investment zones because there's so many tax giveaways in those investment zones, I don't know, maybe there's a long shot that might somehow stimulate some growth, but that's not going to happen overnight. And the other thing is, these tax cuts don't even start until April next year. Well, the national insurance cut is November 2022, and the income tax cut is April 2023. So, I mean, we're talking 6 months away before it even starts to help. We are in a cost of living crisis and an economic meltdown right now. So, I know it's a pretty powerful title of a video, but that's genuinely how I see it, guys. And I genuinely don't understand how anyone with his level of education, he's an economic historian for goodness sake. But perhaps there was no other way. I mean, what would I have done? It's easy for me to criticize, but what would I have done? I would have alleviated the tax burden on small businesses as fast as I could. I mean, I would have done something like a holiday on employers' national insurance contributions, or a VAT holiday, or those kinds of things that bring an immediate cash flow benefit to the hundreds of thousands of small businesses in this country who employ more people than any other sector. That's what I would have done. But nothing he's done in the budget, apart from the energy help, is actually going to help these small businesses stay afloat. And of course, with everybody else rushing to save money because of the cost of living crisis and the fact that our energy bills still haven't gone up, which they're going to in about a week's time, or no, a few days' time, next month in October, people can't go out and spend. And I've already seen just anecdotal examples everywhere of empty cafes, empty restaurants. I've heard anecdotal stories of Airbnb holiday bookings just stopping, hard zero stop. I fear this is going to go down in history as one of the worst budgets ever, and I don't think it's going to help us. And I think that the political and economic uncertainty it's created is going to really hurt us, and I can't see the dust settling until the beginning of 2023. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that if that budget is allowed to stay in place, it does stimulate growth somehow, and it does help people through the cost of living crisis somehow. I just can't see how it's going to do it. Sorry guys, another fairly gloomy video from me, but I just wanted to give a very simple interpretation of why I don't think the strategy of cutting taxes to boost growth is going to work. But let's hope I'm wrong. Thanks guys, see you on the next video. Bye-bye.
And if you look at the state of the economy this morning, you have to ask yourself, do they really care about that either? Because if they did, then how come the economy is in a worse state than my gusset after a nasty follow-through?